Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. The VA Secretary is fine-tuning the number. Want to jump into it. Before we do, though, I want to throw out a special thank you to Morgie Bear, Morgie Bear 711. Thank you so much for the super comment, super chat thing. I really do appreciate your support very much. Thank you, Morgie Bear. All right, so jumping into this, in a Tucson stop, the VA Secretary says the goal is a 15% department-wide cut. So through the entire department, remember that the department is really three kind of silos, and they don't really talk together too well. You have the VBA, which is the Veterans Benefits Administration. You have the VHA, which is the Veterans Healthcare Administration. And then you have the NCA, which is the National Cemeteries Administration. All right, so that is the department. So 15% department-wide. I'm wondering, is this 15% cut going to be to each piece of that administration, right? Each piece of the department, right? VBA, 15%. VHA, 15%. National Cemeteries, 15%. Let's go. Or if it's going to be a little more, I guess, deliberate. So the questions are still out there. We're going to jump into this and see what additional information we can uncover, what sort of nuggets we can pull out of this to understand where we are going. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Every thumbs up, every minute watched really does help the channel, and I appreciate your support. All right, so cutting 15% of the staff at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is a goal, not a guarantee, according to VA Secretary Doug Collins. So, in the first statement here, we're uncovering that is the goal. The goal is to hit the 15% reduction number, but if it's deemed unreasonable by, I'm assuming, the VA Secretary to maintain functionality in the department, then there could be some pushback on that number. So 15% is the goal, not a guarantee. All right, moving on. During a visit to the Tucson VA Medical Center on Monday, the Trump cabinet member said cuts and efficiency improvements at the department are still under review, and no specific numbers have been reached, despite reports to the contrary. Collins has been on the job for about 80 days now, and he has said he has spent about 50% of the time basically fighting back against innuendo and rumor about what is going on at the VA by those who think that they know what's going on at the VA without actually putting the time in to see where we've been. I would agree. I mean, look, it's a lot of, you take a little bit, you find out a little bit of information, and people run with it, and they come up with their own conclusions, and they wrap a bow around it and sell it a certain way. I would say that you see that even more if things are politically charged. You're going to see, each side tie it differently and share it as they deem fit. The reality is, and I've said this before, look, I don't work at the VA. I don't really know. So we'll find out. Some of this stuff we got to take a step back, I guess, and see where the rubber actually does meet the road. Look, I just wanted 4 hens to lay some eggs, be good for the kid, have some fresh eggs. I got 3 hens and Stan's the rooster. I mean, you can't really ask for a better time. I don't know. He's strange. Here we go. All right. So, but the former 4-term Republican congressman and from Georgia made it clear that reductions are coming to the department. So we will see a reduction. Absolutely. What the final number will be, who knows? This is a quotation from him. We have approximately 470,000 employees. That's larger than the active duty Army. But over the last 10 years, we've been struggling Certain parts of our system, our hospitals, our disability claims, and even our cemeteries have had issues that we're not working on, and we should, he said. So maybe there's a better question to be asked. With the money and resources we have, could it be spent better? Collins took questions from local reporters after touring the sprawling coral-colored campus on South 6th Avenue, where he met with veterans and staff members. Quotation here, "One of the reasons that I come to these hospitals is to hear directly from the staff here, directly from the leadership on what they need and what they're getting or not getting," he said during a brief press conference. "Sometimes there's a disconnect between what comes in from the field and what gets to the central office." Collins was joined at the hospital by Tucson Republican Juan Cisimani, who stood at his side but didn't speak as Collins addressed the media. I think Stan the Rooster, I think that he thinks that it's when I'm here. This is when this happens. So here we go. The secretary said the goal of 15% cut to the VA workforce is meant to force real change within the organization. Otherwise, he said, agency bureaucrats would not look hardly anywhere. They would just sort of move the deck chairs, so to speak, on the ship. I have a rooster. He's annoying. The department has added more than 100,000 employees and seen its budget grow by almost $200 billion in recent years, but its performance metrics have not changed. Collins said, "We still see wait times," right? So the average days to completion of our disability claims has climbed back up over 130 days. That's happened in light of all the money and all the people that we have put in. Though nobody's been terminated yet, he said, the administration is looking at whether the agency is overstaffed in areas not directly involved in the delivery of care to veterans, the processing of disability claims, and other essential services. All right, so this is a big quote because the VA secretary is essentially saying veteran-facing employees really aren't going to be removed. But it's the people behind those people, right? The support staff. I don't know. I mean, who's ordering the paper and the pencils, right? So I don't really know. Again, I don't work at the VA, and especially at that level, to really have that type of clarity on what's going on. It's going to be really interesting. I'm really interested to see how all the dust settles on this. All right, moving on. Another quotation here. "I'm not getting rid of any doctors and therapists," Collins said, "but some veterans are almost certain to lose their jobs at the VA, just as they will at other agencies under the administration's planned workforce reductions. It's simply unavoidable," he said, "since veterans make up about 30% of the federal workforce. Some firings have already occurred. According to court records, the VA dismissed some 1,683 staff members as part of a massive purge of probationary workers across the government in February. 2 federal judges later ordered those employees to be reinstated, but those rulings are now on hold pending review by a federal appeals court. The VA hospital in Tucson has been the scene of protests in recent weeks from demonstrators angry about the looming budget and staff reductions and how they might impact services for veterans. On Monday, a handful of people stood at the entrance of the hospital on 6th Avenue holding signs opposing cuts to the VA, in addition to trimming staff and costs. The secretary said he is focused on tackling the issues of suicide and homelessness among veterans, despite almost $3 billion spent on direct care and preventative measures over the past 5 years or so. There has not been a significant change in the suicide rate among former service members, he said. Nowhere else in the world would we accept that kind of spending and not see a different result, said Collins, who still serves as a colonel and a chaplain in the Air Force Reserve, according to his online biography. We've got to think differently about how we're going to do this. 3 local VA employees and a volunteer were recognized for their service at the start of Monday's press conference. Collins shook their hands, posed for pictures with them, and presented each with a commemorative secretarial coin, challenge coin. He said the Tucson Hospital is doing a great job overall, but it faces the same challenges as other VA facilities when it comes to recruiting and retaining doctors and other key staff members. We have some special needs that we're going to have to look at on pay, salary, compensation, but also how we actually make a workforce that is accountable. Collins said, good people will not work here will not work. Let's say that again. So Collins, okay. So he says, good people will not work where they feel like bad things are tolerated. And across the system, not specifically Tucson, but across the system, there's been that perception. And that's how it ends. I'm going to throw out there that, it's a good point that he's bringing up, and I've seen this myself, that when we think about the Veterans Healthcare Administration, and there's some veterans out there who are thinking, no, don't implement and push community care. Let's focus on the internal VHA, right? The problem is it's very difficult to staff with medical professionals, right? Good quality doctors and nurses and x-ray techs and all that stuff in a lot of these places, because they can go down the street and make more money. And that's a hard thing to compete with sometimes. So what inevitably is going to happen when it comes to medical staff is they're going to have to really figure out the pay scales on some of these locations and really do like a wage study within the specific area to determine how much they should be offering doctors and nurses and all that stuff to make sure that it's properly staffed. Because you could not have any community care and be forced to only go to VHA where there's not a fully staffed medical component, and so there's horrendously long wait times because there's not enough doctors on staff. So the only way you can fix that is add more full-time doctors and nurses and whatever, right? Physicians, assistants, whatever it is. And that takes a lot of effort, especially if your pay is not comparable. Anyway, so with that, thanks for watching. I appreciate you very much. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.